We all know the formula, right? And we definitely all know the wild hair. But in this explainer, we're going to go beyond the myth to uncover the real story of Albert Einstein. We're talking about the humble patent clerk who completely redefined reality, the pacifist who helped kickstart the atomic age, and the global icon who is just so much more than a genius. You know, this quote from Charlie Chaplin just hits it perfectly. It really gets to the heart of the Einstein paradox. I mean, he was the world's very first celebrity scientist, this figure everyone was fascinated by. But his ideas, they were so revolutionary that most people just couldn't wrap their heads around them. So let's peel back those layers of myth and find the real man behind that incredible mind. To really understand the revolutionary, we have to start at the very beginning. In Einstein's story, well, it doesn't start in some grand university hall. Nope, it starts in a quiet patent office where young clerk was about to see the world in a way that no one ever had before. Okay, so one of the biggest myths about Einstein is that he was a bad student. But the truth is, it's way more interesting. He was incredible at math and physics from a super young age. He even taught himself calculus when he was just 14. He didn't fail because he wasn't smart. He just couldn't conform. He totally clashed with the rigid, learn-it-by-heart style of his school, which he thought just crushed creativity. So picture this. He graduates, can't land an academic job anywhere, and ends up evaluating other people's inventions. It was right there, in the quiet moments between looking at patents for things like, say, electric typewriters, that he started doing the thought experiments that would literally change our entire understanding of the universe. All right, let's dive into this next part, because what happens next is just legendary. It's 1905, he's still working at the patent office, this 26-year-old nobody, and he publishes 4 papers in a single year. Any one of those papers would have made someone's career. All 4 of them together, they laid the foundation for all of modern physics. I mean, just look at this slide. You can see the sheer range of his genius. So why 1905? Well, maybe it's because the patent office gave him time to think, away from all the academic pressure. He just took on the biggest problems of his time. First, he gives us actual proof that atoms exist. Then, he drops the core idea of quantum theory, that light isn't just a wave, it's also a particle. That was the birth of a whole new physics. And then he just completely rewrites the rules of space and time with special relativity, all based on this simple but radical idea that the speed of light is a universal constant. And if that wasn't enough for 1 year, his 4th paper was a stunning little follow-up. And that brings us to the big one. This simple equation from his 4th paper, it's elegant, it's simple, and it is terrifyingly powerful. It showed that matter and energy are basically 2 sides of the same coin. And because c squared, the speed of light squared, is such a ridiculously huge number, it meant that a tiny, tiny amount of mass could be turned into a gigantic amount of energy. The secret of the stars and the secret of the atomic bomb was right there, hidden in 5 little symbols. But as groundbreaking as 1905 was, Einstein knew his job wasn't done. His theory of special relativity, it didn't include gravity. So he set off on this grueling, 10-year-long intellectual journey to somehow fit the biggest force in the cosmos into his new picture of reality. And his process here is it's pure Einstein. It all started with a simple idea he called his happiest thought. Imagine a person in a falling elevator. For them, in that moment, gravity would just disappear. From that one thought, he realized gravity wasn't a force pulling things down. It was a curve, a warp in the very fabric of space-time itself, caused by mass. It was an idea so profound, it took him another 8 years of brutal mental work to figure out the math to describe it. So his new theory made this absolutely wild prediction, that the sun's massive gravity should actually bend the path of starlight passing by it. In 1919, a solar eclipse gave scientists the perfect chance to test it out. And they did. And guess what? Einstein was right. The news just exploded. As you can see from that headline, overnight it turned a brilliant physicist into a global superstar. But just as his fame was hitting its absolute peak, the world around him was descending into total chaos. The rise of Nazism in Germany would force Einstein out of his home country and into a role he never, ever wanted, to be a political and moral conscience for the entire world. Think about this. He was abroad, visiting the US, when Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. As a famous public figure and as a Jew, Einstein was an immediate target. His books were burned, his property was seized, there was even a bounty put on his head. So he renounced his German citizenship and accepted a position in Princeton, New Jersey. never to step foot in his homeland again. And then came the ultimate moral crisis. In 1939, other physicists, many of them also refugees, learned that German scientists were trying to build an atomic weapon. Terrified of what would happen if the Nazis got one first, they convinced the world's most famous pacifist to sign a letter to President Roosevelt, urging America to start its own nuclear program. That single decision, it would haunt him for the rest of his life. That letter led directly to the Manhattan Project, and eventually the atomic bombs dropped on Japan. The man who had dedicated his life to peace had, out of a terrible, terrible necessity, helped create the most destructive weapon in all of human history. So, in his later years there in Princeton, Einstein became something of an intellectual monument, a living legend. But he never, ever stopped searching, both for a deeper understanding of the universe and for a better path for all of us. But, he became more and more isolated from the mainstream of physics. While a whole new generation of physicists were embracing the strange probabilities of quantum mechanics, Einstein just couldn't accept it. He famously said, "God does not play dice," meaning he refused to believe the universe was fundamentally random. He spent his last 30 years searching for a single, elegant theory to unite all the forces of nature, a quest that physicists are still on to this day. But here's what's so important to remember. His legacy is so much bigger than just physics. As you can see here, he was a talented violinist, a fierce opponent of racism, a tireless advocate for world peace. He even co-invented a refrigerator. He really applied his incredible mind and his deep moral convictions to pretty much every part of the human experience. In the end, Einstein's greatest gift wasn't just his equations. It was his relentless curiosity, his courage to challenge centuries of established scientific thought, and his deep belief that the universe, at its core, was both beautiful and knowable. He taught us to question everything, leaving us with that one enduring challenge to always, always keep looking deeper.